Welcome to Out of the Box from Hudson County Community College. In these podcasts, we bring you timely discussions about education, people, programs, events, issues, and solutions that affect the education and enrichment of the people of Hudson County. I'm Chris Reber, president of Hudson County Community College and your podcast host. Joining me today to discuss the college's award-winning and transformational Hudson Scholars Program are Dr. Gretchen Schulthes, the Director of Advisement at Hudson County Community College's Center for Academic and Student Success. Welcome, Gretchen.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
Wonderful to have you. And we also welcome John Urgola, who's Assistant Director of Institutional Research and Planning. Thanks for being here, John.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Reber.
And we're very pleased to welcome a student, our Hudson Scholar, Jocelyn Esteban. Jocelyn, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is going to be a joy. Thank you all for being here. We're going to be talking today about something that we are passionate about at Hudson County Community College and that we believe is nationally distinctive and is actually going to be a hugely important growing program in the delivery of our mission, which is an inspirational mission. I'd like to start with you, Jocelyn, because you're the reason we're all here, right? Our students are the reason all of us on the faculty and staff are involved in college life. And I often tell students when I meet them, you know, your success is our success. And I know you've been a successful student. Tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would.
Well, I'm 19 years old. This is my second year at Hudson County Community College. I came to Hudson straight out of high school just because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with my life right out of high school, especially because of the pandemic. I was going through that most of my junior and senior year. And I just didn't have a lot of focus. I lost focus in school. I was a little lost in life. But I knew I didn't want to just do nothing. I definitely did want to go to school. I liked school. I liked challenging myself. But I didn't want to waste a bunch of money going to any school, not passionate about something. And so I decided to, do it a more affordable route, go to the community college. And it's right by the path. I live in Harrison. So I could just hop on the train, and then it's right outside of here. And I was interested in business, so I majored in business liberal arts. And that way, at for a couple months, actually my first month here, I felt really welcomed. I was lost. I don't really come to Jersey City, but anytime I was lost, I just asked a staff member. They were always nice and respectful. Oh, it's that way. And you can just feel it. It feels like, these people, they don't really know you, but they see that you're a student and they care automatically. And you can just feel that. So it's something you can't fake. And with the professors, even though it's a community college, you would think like in movies, it'd be different. No, it's the same way in any other school. They're always excited. They always want to teach you something. They give it to you straight. They're not babying you like they do in high school. And I love it. It's a challenging environment and it's a caring environment. And I'm really excited and happy I chose this school rather than do nothing or go somewhere else. I feel like being here, I was meant to be here.
Jocelyn, that is wonderful. That's so wonderful to hear. And we're going to talk more about your experience here. But that feeling that you just described of this being a caring campus is one that has resonated with so many of our students, particularly during the pandemic when we were all coming together to support one another to navigate our way through all the challenges that the pandemic brought. I always say the twin pandemics of both COVID-19 and racial and social injustice and violence. And our students have coined the phrase, Hudson is home.
Yes, I agree with that message.
Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. And to my colleagues, John Urgola and Gretchen Schulthes, again, thank you for being here. I'm going to ask you each to say just a little bit about yourself and how long you've been here and what you're doing here. Gretchen?
Sure. So my name is Gretchen Schulthes. I am the Director of Advisement at Hudson County Community College. I have been here almost 5 years at this point. I began as a counselor and have since moved up into a few different roles. My background is primarily in counseling, where I have my master's degree and my Ph.D. in counseling. I am very passionate about student success to the point that was the focus of my dissertation. I think it really informs a lot of the work that I do here and a lot of the research that I do beyond kind of my work here.
Absolutely. You and I came at about the same time.
We did.
To Hudson, and you have made an indelible mark already in 5 years, and we'll talk more about that.
Thank you.
John, tell us a little about yourself.
I'm the Assistant Director of Institutional Research, but I did not start out in research. I actually was a counselor for about 10 years at another community college in New Jersey. My background is primarily in counseling and clinical counseling. I'm also a licensed professional counselor in New Jersey, and spent most of my time working one-on-one with students, a lot of time working with student athletes and students at risk, also teaching courses in psychology and communication as well. But I always was very much interested in not just what helps students, but being able to prove that, essentially, to assess that. I'm a very curious person, and when I had the opportunity to start here at Hudson about coming up in around 2 years ago, this was basically the job I was always looking for, and couldn't ask to work in a better place than HCCC.
And John, your background in counseling, clinical counseling, and student support is fundamental to the success you're helping us realize through this program. So let's start talking about what is this Hudson Scholars Program. And actually, I have to tell our viewers, the program so far has brought us quite a bit of visibility locally and even nationally. And so the three of us have been talking about this in various venues, and we sort of got it down. But let me give you the background, and then I'm going to ask Gretchen and John to talk about the program in more detail. We, as a comprehensive, diverse urban community college whose mission is to meet every student where they are and help them move forward in achieving their goals, their personal goals and aspirations. It's an incredibly inspirational mission. We don't choose who comes here. Everyone who chooses us is welcomed here, and we are focused like a laser beam on how we can help every student succeed. And what we see happening before our eyes is transformational change and opportunity that our students are experiencing. But they have tremendous challenges, which is actually one of the greatest points of pride. One of our greatest points of pride is the diversity of our campus, one of the most diverse in the United States, serving the most diverse city in the United States. And we're proud of the fact that we're an Hispanic serving institution. 56% of our students are Latino. We have a rich diversity of cultural and ethnic backgrounds, and we have students who, a third of our students were born abroad. Over a third of our students speak English as a second language. Some start their college education not speaking English at all, and we work with them to bring them to a level of English proficiency. Many of our students are working full-time, raising kids while attending school. These are laudable pursuits. I often tell our students, I don't think if I were in your shoes back when I was in college, I could succeed in navigating all of the challenges that I see you, our students, navigate. But they are challenges, and our goal at the college is to remove every barrier we can, and in spite of the challenges, help students succeed. And we have a program here that has been longstanding. It's called the Educational Opportunity Fund, or EOF program, that's funded by the state of New Jersey, that allows us to serve about 200 students who are particularly at risk for not completing their programs, not because of a lack of effort, but because of issues like financial challenge and some of the other barriers that I've mentioned. And through this program, these students receive high-touch counseling, mentoring, coaching, and support, and they receive financial rewards for meeting academic milestones. They're engaged in high-impact kinds of activities. And lo and behold, year after year, the students in our EOF program outperform all of our other students in a significant way in terms of retention and completion. In other words, in spite of all the challenges they're encountering, through this program, they are actually highly successful. They complete their programs. They go on often to transfer to four-year and graduate programs and do exceedingly well. So prior to the pandemic, members of our college community, as part of our focus on student success, we're discussing the challenge and the opportunity of trying to bring what we know works through the Educational Opportunity Fund to scale so that we can serve all students. But the challenge of that was it's very expensive. It's people intensive because our counselors have very low ratios of student advisees, so they can really be working in a very personal, direct way to support every student. And it's also technology intensive. It's expensive. And so there's been this conundrum of we know what we could do to help many more students finish, not just come through the front door, but finish and achieve their goals and move forward. But we don't have the funding to actually make it available to everyone. So during the pandemic, we decided as a community that we were going to use some of the one-time federal stimulus funds that we were awarded to scale up the program. We actually initiated a 2-year trial project of replicating the successful elements of EOF, which is similar also to the City University of New York's ASAP program that is highly regarded throughout the nation. And we brought 800 additional new students into a program similar to EOF that we call Hudson Scholars. And I want to now turn it over to my colleagues after that too long introduction to ask them to speak. First, I'm going to ask Dr. Schulthes to speak about the program's design, what we have put in place, and how that serves students. And then I'm going to ask John Urgola to talk about the outcomes that we're seeing. John has this wonderful mix of counseling experience, but he's a researcher as well. And we don't often see that set of strengths, but as a researcher and a member of our institutional research and planning team, he is actually helping us measure the impact from a retention and student success point of view, and also from a financial point of view. So I'm going to start with you, Gretchen. Tell us more about the program.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I think one of the things that is truly a point of pride is just the intentionality with which we designed the program. As you mentioned, some of those wonderful tenets of EOF that have been so successful, we wanted to think about how could we shape that and really personalize that for a broader group of students. So thinking about what we actually worked with EOF and thought about what are those key integral elements. So we talked about the financial component. We talked about that personalized support. And we talked about the additional engagement with faculty. And those really landed on kind of some of those three primary elements that we wanted to ensure that we integrated within the Hudson Scholars program. So within that kind of intentional support element, we have our students that are assigned to our academic counselors at a 150-to-1 ratio. And that number is intentionally small. Our kind of general advisement staff often have ratios of up to 700 students. And they don't always get that personal relationship with students because oftentimes it's very transactional. And it's very just, you need to register for classes, and we recognize that that's not the ideal experience for students. And I think so much of I've even heard, was chatting with Jocelyn earlier, is just that support is essential to students being successful. And so I think that really close relationship has shown, and I think some of John's data has even shown that really is the key component that has encouraged students to be retained. So that kind of close relationship is very key. Secondary to that, as well as the financial element. We recognize, and as you kind of addressed, our students experience so many barriers. And I think one of the things I'm very proud of the college as a whole is our commitment to holistically supporting students across the board, whatever that may mean. And I think the Hudson Scholars program is just an additional element of that. So we looked at EOF, we looked at their average grant funding from the state, and we said, okay, can we match that? And so what we did is we actually created a stipend structure where students can meet with their academic counselor each month and engage in a task that is related to something to encourage their success. So whether that be meeting with someone in career, whether that be completing a financial literacy segment, whether that be enrolling in the college student success class, one of those kind of key components coupled with that can earn them a stipend of between $125 and $250 a month. And so that helps our students exponentially. And that's been some of the fantastic feedback that we've got, is that in addition to those relationships, this is helping them afford to be retained and stay in school. And the other kind of component that we really are grateful for is the support of the faculty. They've truly been pivotal in the success of this program. One of the things we learned from EOF is that they have close relationships with faculty. They were getting intermittent progress reports on how students were doing, and that allowed their counselors to intervene before things got to a point where there was no turning back. So we really kind of took that and integrated that into our early alert progress report mentality. And we wanted to ensure that students were also getting praise when they were doing well. So our academic counselors regularly engage with faculty who have submitted upwards of 5,000 progress reports over the last academic year. And that's been truly pivotal to our success, because that information feeds the information back to the academic counselors who relay that to the students, and it really closes the loop with regard to student success in academics.
Fantastic. And so we created this program, and I have to tell you, this was an idea that surfaced with very little lead time if we were going to get it started in fall of 21. I think Gretchen and her colleagues had about a month to actually implement this. And in about 30 to 60 days, they implemented the program and invited 800 new students in fall of 21, one of whom is Jocelyn, to become involved in this program. And students often use the stipends for things like books and supplies and transportation costs. And we wanted to test the theory that by scaling the program up, which required lead investment that we were able to use stimulus dollars for, we were hoping we would see a significant increase in the retention of these students versus the average retention rates of our students, and wanted to measure, first of all, whether that in fact was true. Would we see the same kind of success in this larger scaled up program that we see in EOF? And secondly, if in fact we see that success, what are the implications with regard to additional revenue that students staying enrolled rather than leaving us is affording the college? In other words, can the program sustain itself long term through what I call student success revenue as a result of the impact it has on our students' retention? And so John has been measuring this meticulously for now almost a year and a half. And John, tell us what we're seeing.
So thank you, Dr. Reber. So what we're seeing is really uncharted territory. Students in our Hudson Scholars Program are being retained anywhere between 37 to 30% better than the students who are not. So these are students who we compare them to who are concurrently enrolled. They are essentially the same exact academic profile as our Hudson Scholars students, but the difference being they're getting the benefits of this program, meeting with the counselor, the ongoing progress reports, and obviously the financial incentive. And in the spring, fall to spring, we retained 85% of our students. Fall to fall, we retained 70% of our students. And as I said, that's anywhere between a 37 and 30% increase compared to this other comparison group. Beyond just the retention at a high level, what we know once again is that it is about that relationship that developed with these counselors, doing that early and often. And as you like to say, Dr. Reber, we know that our students who meet monthly with their counselor are basically guaranteed to return the next semester. And I mean that quite literally. 99% of students who met with their counselor monthly in the fall returned for the spring. 93% who met with them monthly in the spring returned for the following fall. So that's what we're looking for. Yes, it's intensive. It's personnel intensive. It's financially intensive. But what we are seeing is very promising results. Before I move on to the financial part, let me talk a little bit more about some of the people pieces of it. Some other cool stuff we've seen. Not only are students being retained, but they're actually increasing their credit load. So that was another important thing for us. We wanted this program to be as inclusive as possible. We didn't want a selection bias. We didn't want to cherry pick students to be a part of this program. We wanted to collect as many students as possible, in particular students who otherwise may not have sought out this type of support on their own or wouldn't be collected in some other type of program like EOF. So we set that credit minimum at 9 credits as opposed to requiring them to be full-time. And we actually converted about 59% of those part-time students into full-time students by their second semester. So that, in addition to just higher retention rates in general. Our students also re-enroll at a much faster pace. Basically, what our students do on the first day of registration, it takes upwards of about 3 weeks for our comparison group to do. We're also really pleased about what we're seeing in the program's ability to narrow equity gaps. So just not to be too technically speaking, as you mentioned before, we work at a very diverse college. The gaps that we see in success across different racial and ethnic groups across the country is an issue. And we had historically seen similar ones here as well. But what we saw in our first year of Hudson Scholars is we improved fall-to-fall retention for Hispanic and Latino students by 46% for fall-to-fall, and 64% for our Black or African American students. So that impact being so great, now let me be clear, all students improved at a much better rate, but those two groups in particular, what they did was basically narrow the achievement gap. They cut it in half. If you think about how much different they are from previous years, we have cut that difference in half. So coming back to the idea of, is something like this sustainable? First of all, I always like to, and you help me remember this as well, that ultimately this is about helping students. It's not just a numbers game, right? That these students are now here for another semester. It's going to make them more likely to come back for another semester, to graduate. It's going to change their lives. And if I told you it was going to cost you $600,000 to do that, to improve retention by 37%, I think you'd probably say that's a pretty great investment. But what we're actually seeing is that the results have been so significant that not only has it covered the costs of these stipends, of paying the additional personnel, but we actually had a net revenue of over $300,000 in the program's first year. So if you were looking for a reason at another school to create a program like this, that one thing that we always go back to is, well, it's expensive. How could you do something like that? Well, it's in the ultimate, it is not expensive. It's actually what it's doing is paying you back. And your reward for getting that additional funding, getting that additional money is also additional students being at your college, additional students succeeding, graduating, and changing their lives.
Phenomenal. So the costs for scaling up with our first cohort of about 800 students in fall of 21 for the year was about $600,000.
About $650,000.
$650,000, and that included our hiring 5 new full-time counselors to make sure we had that personal ability to have counselors support the students every step of the way. Also the financial stipend, so $650,000 plus technology and other things. And what we found at the end of that first full year is revenue from our Hudson Scholar students went up about almost $1 million over what it would have been had those students performed at the average rates of students not involved in this program. So it actually produced net revenue while having a major impact on the delivery of our mission. More students succeeding, which also, if you take that a step further, means, what does that mean for the community and the workforce? It means more students having post-secondary credentials that lead to family-sustaining wages, who instead of being on public assistance are paying taxes, who are creating the skilled workforce needed for the future. So all pieces fit together. And so we were so pleased with the outcomes of that first cohort of students in Hudson Scholars in 2021-22 that we brought in another cohort in fall of 22, 900 more students. We hired 5 more full-time people, and now we'll be measuring, in addition to the continuing success of Jocelyn and her cohort partners through graduation next May for many of them, but now we'll be measuring the success of this second cohort. So right now we have something like 1,600 students, give or take, in these 2 cohorts, plus the students in our EOF program. We're close to 2,000 students having the impact of this really best practice approach. And next spring, when we actually know the results of the fall to spring retention for cohort 2, and then the completion rates for the first group of cohort 1. And this is going to bring us back to Jocelyn. We're going to make a decision, and I can tell you already what it's going to be. It's going to be a decision to make this a permanent program here. We will continue to employ the 10 full-time counselors we've recruited, and then the goal will be to gradually scale it up further to virtually all of our students, meaning that many, many, many more of our students long-term are going to be not only coming through our front door, but graduating and realizing their dreams. And Jocelyn, that brings me back to you. You are planning to graduate next May.
Yes, I am.
And you're going to then do what?
I figured out what I wanted to do here. I wanted to major in business marketing, and I'm trying to get my master's degree. And so far, because of this program, I feel like I don't want to say it's easy, but it can be done if you have the discipline and you really want it. It's not that hard. You just go to school, you try your best, you focus, and you put what's important to you in front of you. And because of my counselor, Ms. McKenzie, and the support of Career Services, helping me with my resume, helping me, they also help with clothing as well. It's just all support all around. I feel like when you have support like that, there's no way you can't make it. So I feel like this program really should stay. It's changed my life. I feel like I have a family member, Ms. McKenzie, that's like an older sister to me. She's been through everything already. She works at the school. Anytime I have a question about anything, she's always there for me. It's like I got a rock by my side all the time, and I really love this program.
So you say Mackenzie's your rock.
Yeah.
Which I think is so wonderful. We're so proud of you.
Thank you so much.
So proud of all of our students. So I want to thank you all for being here to share in the telling of this story that we really think has national significance. If you think about it, knowing what we know through this 2-year project and through the success that our students are realizing, in the future, when we advocate funding for our college, we're going to advocate it on the basis of how that funding specifically is going to lead to outcomes of student completion, student success, and all that means for the economic development of the region. And we think it will perhaps provide a totally different way of advocating the needs of our students, leading to their continued success. So thank you all for joining me. We have a tradition when we end our podcast. I ask each of my guests if you could describe your Hudson County Community College experience in one word, what would that word be? Jocelyn, what would your word be?
My word would be enriching.
Enriching? John?
Supportive.
Supportive?
I would say bold.
Bold, enriching, supportive, bold, and my word is always inspirational. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is Chris Reber. If you've enjoyed this podcast, we hope that you will join us for future sessions of Out of the Box and visit our website, hccc.edu, and share this podcast with your friends and family. And please stay safe and well. Thank you.